your credit score, bank account balance, even your net worth are scores that reflect your financial behavior. So if you look at your credit score specifically and it's not reflecting where you want it to be, then fundamentally, then you need to change some of the financial behavior that you have.
I feel like in the Black community, credit funding to some degree has been, maybe it's not the right word, has been abused a little bit.
Credit can help you speed up and start to make up the margin that you're behind in the race. But credit used improperly is you running backwards.
You have people who's like, yo, I got this play, I got this quick lick. So they start running the quick lick that's self-serving because it fills their pocket.
But the easiest way to know if you're using credit or credit is using you is to stop using it for a month.
You show me your daily habits, I'll show you the results that you're gonna have.
This is good, y'all.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Mel and the Money Show. So this is a special episode for a few reasons. One, it's a guest we've already had on the show, but at the time our setup wasn't
as nowhere near where it is today.
Wasn't quite as established.
Yeah,
the word we'll use. Yeah. At the time, but more importantly than that, this guest has been somebody who's been a friend of mine for more than half my life. We've known each other since high school, freshman year of high school. Won't tell my age there. You can connect the dots on that. And somebody who is actually one of the reasons that I decided to venture into entrepreneurship. So if I've helped you in any way, you can also thank him because I may or may not have been an entrepreneur if it wasn't for his guidance. So today's gonna be a very special episode. I am going to read some of his stats, even though I know him very personally, just so that I don't miss some of the amazing highlights for some of the things that he's been able to accomplish for the people that he's served. So I'm gonna pull that up right now. Kenny Conwell is considered one of the nation's leading capital advisors. He has dedicated his career to helping entrepreneurs access funding to scale their business with a track record of improving over 4.6 million credit points collectively, removing 400,000 negative items and securing 50 plus million in personal and business capital. And that's across 37,000 individuals. So ladies and gentlemen, with no further ado, Kenny Conwell.
My man, thanks for having me, guys. And wow, I already know
he's gonna say. I already know he's gonna say. Like, you gonna tell the joke about being able to walk in the room because of how big we made the intro?
Nah. It is, yeah. But no, that's with the mission that we have and helping people, that's scratching the surface, but I'm still kind of low-key impressed by those numbers, but at the same time, I'm grateful to be here and hopefully we can add some value to the people,
Absolutely. So credit, right? It can go one or two ways, right? I feel like in the Black community, credit funding to some degree has been, maybe it's not the right word, has been abused a little bit.
I think abused is a good word.
Yeah, there's another word I was thinking.
Okay. I was about to say, that's actually a really perfect word. Yeah.
I recalibrated to that word. So I guess for you, what is your take on the importance on access to capital and how people should approach it? Because similar to even life insurance, we talked about that numerous times on our shows, things tend to become oversold and undereducated. So when you think about the average everyday person and or entrepreneur getting access to capital, why is it important and how is your approach different?
I think the first thing is it's a foundational approach, when it comes to your finances. So when you look at your credit score, it's your credit score, bank account balance, even your net worth are scores that reflect your financial behavior. So if you look at your credit score specifically and it's not reflecting where you want it to be, then fundamentally, then you need to change some of the financial behavior that you have, which also goes back to, life insurance being oversold, credit being oversold. It's just bastardized because people just...
That's the word I was going to say, bastardized.
Yeah. People just don't understand the importance of it. So you have people who's like, yo, I got this play, I got this quick lick. So they start running the quick lick that's self-serving because it fills their pockets.
Yeah.
And now it leaves the consumer who leverages credit in a worse position because they didn't know how to leverage it correctly. So my approach fundamentally starts with education because there's no such thing as credit repair. It's credit education, just like there's no such...
Because if you repair it, without the education, it's gonna ruin it again.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's like what you guys do with financial repair. You're technically, if we're being honest, you guys don't gatekeep. You give all the secrets up front so that way people are aware of what they're doing. But now once they're implementing this stuff, they can make the decisions based on the information that they receive so they don't be in a bad position again.
Facts.
Credit is the same way, right? Capital is the same way. So fundamentally, that's where we start. And I think that's a big reason why we're different than other people who do credit and capital, because we really truly want to make sure people understand what they're getting themselves into. Then how do we turn the credit and capital into more cash flow? So that way they can be profitable with whatever their endeavors are. Because I don't know about you guys, I'm grateful for my parents and everything. My parents actually left me some good stuff, and you know, my dad's no longer here, but he left me some stuff. However, many individuals aren't given trust funds that look like us. They don't come from money. So if you know how to leverage credit and capital strategically, it's like you're leveraging the bank in order to accelerate your ability to build wealth. And that's our big deal.
Yeah, and that was the point I wanted to hit on. As a people, you know, we've been marginalized when it comes to financial literacy, and we're behind the 8 ball.
Yep.
No, there's no surprise there. Credit can help you speed up and start to make up the margin that you're behind in the race.
Right.
But credit used improperly is you running backwards.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? So I believe it is extremely needed for our people because we're already behind on the race to wealth, and we need any asset or any vehicle that we can to increase our velocity at building wealth. However, I don't want us to go backwards.
Right.
Yeah.
So what can we do? What do you do to help make sure that we use the vehicle in the right way, but not have it turned in the wrong direction? And I know you hit on it a little bit before, but like, I just think it's so important that everybody at home like learns those steps on this episode.
I think we should break down wealth. And let me tell you why I'm saying this, because George and I had this conversation a few years ago, and it was an acronym that I don't know if he came up with it or I came up with it.
Well, he gonna take credit if you don't take credit. So
We collaboratively came up with it.
Yeah, my man. But when we start with wealth, just the word wealth, W stands for wisdom. So when we look at just us here, collectively, we have wisdom. So when we're going back to answer your question about how do we start with credit, we have to go to the wisdom of the individuals that we're getting the advice from. See how can we implement credit strategically and successfully when it comes to getting capital.
Right.
So if we're looking at, okay, well, who are we listening to? Who are we getting our information from in terms of how we're leveraging our credit and cash flow? And does that wisdom line up with the velocity that we're looking to take to get the results faster? Or is the wisdom, the conventional wisdom that we're getting, not necessarily wisdom, it's misadvice, it's self-serving that puts us in a bad position. So that's why I say let's start with wealth, meaning wisdom with W, but then it leads into E, which is equity, which we can talk about, right? But that's where I think we start, is getting the information, getting the wisdom, and then how do we line that up with where we're looking to go?
Understood.
I love it. Let's break it down.
See, we're gonna open a can of worms.
Yeah, let's break it down.
So let's get into. Go ahead.
No, I was saying. So
Let's break down the rest of the acronym.
Yeah.
So E stands for equity, right? So if we look at, okay, well, we have to get the wisdom. Now we want to leverage equity. If I'm leveraging credit or capital, I want to do it in a way that's going to allow me to buy something for a lower price or at reasonable price, knowing that specific thing is going to increase in equity or increase in value.
Yeah.
So equity was the fair definition of equity is the disparity between what something is worth, what you bought it for, and what it's worth. Correct. Just for the people at home, right? Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that.
So,
So when we look at how we fundamentally use credit to speak on, I'm glad you broke that down. Most of us look at, hey, I'm going to leverage my credit and I'm going to go buy something that's not necessarily going to appreciate with equity.
Right.
I'm going to buy something that's a liability. Hence the reason why so many people in the Black households like, don't get credit, because we are fundamentally taught to not get it because we're getting liabilities. Nobody's telling us about.
But that's where the wisdom comes in. Right. Because if you don't have the wisdom, then you don't even need to get the credit, because you can't have equity without wisdom.
Right. Which leads us right into the most favorite one, which is assets. Right. So we got wisdom, we got equity, we got asset, but there's two types of assets. Well, actually a few types of assets. But when we're looking at, okay, assets specifically, we have assets that are going to appreciate. Some will argue and say that, hey, your home is not an asset because it's not producing cash flow. I'll say it's not a cash flow producing asset, but you've got to live somewhere anyways. And typically with real estate, it's going to increase with value, which, okay, what we just talked about, equity. So now that's an asset that we own.
Okay.
But we also have the second type of asset, which is a cash flow producing asset.
Right.
You know, now sometimes you can buy assets that produce cash flow that decrease in value, but then other times you can buy assets, which is the best, which increase in equity value and produce cash flow. So when we start to think about credit and capital, we want to use this wealth acronym to consider how we're actually deploying it, because we want to have cash flow producing assets. Ideally. Now, can you have an asset that's not necessarily increasing in value, but it's producing cash flow? Yes, we can. We'll get into how that helps you, but that's the next thing. But it leads into, you know, the next letter in the acronym, which is L, right? And
I think it stands for one or two things. I don't know what it's.
What do you think?
I want to say it's leverage, but it could be liability.
Okay.
Or it could be neither.
It actually can go either way, but it is for leverage.
Okay.
It's definitely leverage. But if you don't leverage credit correctly, it's going to turn into a liability. But if we go with wisdom at the beginning, we're going to avoid liabilities and start to figure out how can we leverage. Now, I don't got to speak about leverage because you guys talk about leverage all the time. I'm just going to speak about leverage from the capital and credit perspective. But what can we leverage though? We can leverage our credit and our cash flow. We can leverage
our assets. Right. Because they have equity and there's margin there. Right. We can leverage our business.
Can we leverage real estate?
Real estate.
Right. So when we start thinking about how
you can leverage anything that has equity, technically.
Right.
Can we leverage information?
Absolutely.
Oh, what? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's one of the greatest cheat codes. And I'm a firm believer that I think intellectual property is the greatest asset class.
So now when we're thinking about how do we fundamentally use this credit and capital, we want to leverage everything.
Right.
You know, can we leverage our resources? Can we leverage relationships for the better? Can we leverage other networks? Can we leverage equity? All of these things is how we truly start to build what we call wealth. Right. Leverage is one of my favorite because a lot of people associate credit and they say, oh, I want to leverage, but they're not leveraging in the correct way. They're leveraging in a way that they're over leveraging, I should say, because nobody taught them what they should do. And Carter, you're going to like T. What you think T stands for, brother?
I actually have no idea.
This is on record that you have no idea that something you're going to love starts with a T?
Yeah, man, I'm blanking right now. It's actually making me mad, bro. Like, all right, give me 3 seconds.
Are you serious? I thought you was being
No, only word that comes to me is trillion, and maybe in my mind
taxes.
I like trillion.
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm focused on the money right now, which is wild. I'm like, trillion? How we get there? Taxes.
But taxes. So, and you spoke about this before, but the reason why I bring up taxes, right? Because taxes. There's certain things, and you can speak more about this than I can, but there's certain things that the tax code incentivizes, and there's certain things that it decentivizes based on how you are set up with the tax code. So when you understand that at the end of the day, we got to address taxes when it comes to wealth, but specifically, we got to address taxes when we're leveraging, we have to understand how we use this in our favor. So that's the reason why I say when we're having a conversation about wealth and leveraging credit, we need to understand taxes.
Yeah, well, I think there's a few ways to look at it. I love the way I would love the direction you went there, but I also think we can go the direction that if you leverage properly, you don't have to pay taxes, right? Because leverage is a way to get access to money, equity, right? And the IRS, to tell some else, loans are not considered taxable.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? So like, it's just a way to you get the wisdom. You get the equity because you bought an asset and you leverage properly. You avoid taxes,
which gives you more money to further the cycle.
Correct. This is the reason why I said taxes is here, because there's certain things that, as you know, the IRS or however we want to say the tax system incentivizes, and there's certain things that they don't. So just simply understanding, to your point, how to use taxes in our favor is powerful, because a lot of people look at the IRS as the enemy.
Right.
But if you know what they want you to do and you understand the rule book, going back to wisdom, you understand, man, these IRS folks they got some stuff that's really good.
Yeah.
If you are set up a certain kind of way.
It's like any other game. If you understand the rules, then you can play.
When you're born in America, you signed up for the game, whether you like it or not.
Right.
It's up to you to learn the rules.
Fact.
You can get upset about not knowing the rules, or you can learn the rules and get with it. But you have a choice.
Right.
Yeah. That's what I can respect. The IRS gives you a choice to pay taxes or not. You don't have to pay taxes. Right. You have a choice whether you want to pay taxes or not. Right. And what you don't learn, you will pay for in ignorance.
Yeah, because as you know, there's 4 levels of learning, right? And so it's just like, we understand that your parents may not have known this information.
Right.
But at some point when you got that tax bill, you saw your gross income. They call it gross because it's disgusting how much they take away. Right. When you saw that, and it's like, oh, like at that point, that should have sparked something like, why am I paying that much in taxes? Right. You were unconsciously incompetent. You didn't know what you didn't know. Right. But once you know, and now you're consciously incompetent. It's like, well, I know this is wrong, but I still don't know what to do about it. And at that point, that's when you have to make a decision to dig, do research, listen to our podcast, tap into people. But once you know, even if not knowing is not, it's one quote that you actually say, to know and not to do is not to know, or something like that, right? So it's just like, once you know, like, you have to do something. You have to decide if you're going to do something about it. But what you can't do is have awareness and complain about it and then know that there's ways to avoid it, or understand that it's possible and you don't do any research on it.
Right.
Right.
Now, what does the H stand for?
What does H stand for?
Hedge.
Oh.
Hedge. You got to hedge.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you have this thing called, inflation. And I believe it was Grant. Grant was like, hey, man, it's like a silent tax nobody talks about, because things are always going up each and every year, So we got to consider inflation. But also when we're thinking about hedge, there's multiple things that you have to hedge against. You got inflation. Right. Obviously, you have, hey, what about when, not if, life happens? Do you have the proper structures in place? Right. George said this before. Wealth is created through concentration. It's preserved through diversification. So when we're looking at how we hedge, we have to make sure we have a situation in place, specifically structures, insurances, all these things, so that way we're good. So when we start to think about, okay, well, fundamentally, how do we build wealth, leveraging credit and capital? We use this wealth acronym as our guiding principles to make sure we're in alignment. Now, if you need advisory services, Melanin Money is available to do that. Right. But when we look at hedge, that's what, from my perspective, it means.
Yeah, and I feel like it's all encompassing, right? Because it's the last, and it's important that it's the last letter, because in order to build wealth, right, we want to protect it. You don't want to accumulate and not protect it, right? So it's all encompassing. So hedge to me is, what happens if I if I die prematurely, right? And I was on the path to building wealth. Do I have life insurance that's going to bridge the gap so that the outcome that I originally had for the wealth still happens? Right. What happens if I get hurt or sick and I can't work in the same capacity? Do I have the proper insurance in place that's going to take care of that? Right. What happens if I get sued? Do I have the right insurance in place? So hedge is all encompassing, and it's important it's the last letter, because, okay, I built it. I've done those things, but now I have to create this moat of protection across the board so that I don't erode my wealth, so I don't get sued. Right. I don't think I would do anything to be canceled, but one thing I always say is, like, you can't cancel this cash flow, right? Do I have my assets set up in a way where it's like, cool, George, the individual, is canceled, but why is he still living like he's living, right? And I just think hedging is poking holes in your own ship proactively before anybody else can, and say, okay, cool, this is how I need to plug it so that when one of these variables potentially happens, I'm good. Most people don't think about that. They're only thinking about the accumulation aspect of building wealth. That's why I love what we do. It's not as sexy, right, to think about it proactively, but because you were in my life at that point in time. What if I didn't practice what I preached when I went through that health scare? Right. Like, what if I didn't have disability insurance in place? Yeah, it could have took you. You know what I mean? It could have took me out financially, could have wiped me out. But luckily, I was already in the industry, already knew, had helped people get disability policies and all the things, right? And so, understanding how to protect your wealth is just honestly more important than getting it. Because getting it at some point, like once you acquired the skill, right, and you understand the process, most people have a strong chance of getting it. The problem is most people don't end up keeping it.
Right. And listening to that, we could add to E, and it could also be energy. Because once we start to think about the energy of money, the vibration of money, we have to understand, hey, you can be really, really good at making it, but if you don't have the energy or the wisdom or the way to keep it, because you're not following this principle just as fast as you're making it, you're going to lose it.
Right.
You know,
Faster.
Yeah.
Think about a bucket that has a hole in it, right? You pour a little bit of water in it, a little bit leaks out. You start dumping water in it,
the hole expands. And
you
then,
know what I mean? So you actually, like, a man that sleeps on the floor can't fall out of bed, right? So it's like what happens is people ask this age-old question of like, would you rather never have it, right, and then not know what it's like to have it, or would you rather have had it and to lose it? Now, personally, I wouldn't mind having and losing it because that means I probably know how to get it back. But my point of bringing that up is there's so many people that just don't put the principles in place because they just think that it's always going to work like that. There's ebbs and flows. There's highs. What do we say in our early entrepreneur days, right? It's like keep your highs low and your lows high.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Like 1 month you could make 10,000, 100,000, whatever is a lot of money to you. And another month it could be $10, right? Depending upon how things go.
Right.
And if you don't, what's the quote that you also said? What's up, YouTube family? Thanks so much for watching the show. I hope you are enjoying this episode. But if you are watching this, there's actually a 70% chance that you're not subscribed to the channel. And that's okay. We appreciate you for watching and listening. However, if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscriber button, it'll let YouTube know that other people are interested in this show so that we can further spread the message of money.
And if you're ready to start learning how to build wealth and save on taxes, we highly recommend you join our Multiply Your Money Challenge. This is a 5-day virtual event where both me and George are going to be teaching you the advanced tax and investing strategies of the 1%. And we highly recommend that you grab a VIP ticket because both me and George are going to be answering your personal financial and tax questions. That link can be found in the show notes below. Can't wait to see you there.
Peace.
Just about to bring it up. When you're doing well financially, do well financially because, you know, in entrepreneurship, especially, you can be doing well financially. I mean, crushing 100K weeks, $100 million months, and you're doing well financially. But are you doing well financially? Meaning, are you doing the proper things with the money when you have it? Because that's when the discipline comes in to realize that, am I going against this or am I putting myself in a position to where I'm thinking that this high is always going to be high. But there's a reason why the heartbeat goes, like when you look at the heartbeat, it's going up, it's going down, it's going up, it's going down. That's life.
Right. It's my kind of life.
So when we're doing well financially, we have to do well financially, which is tough for some people, especially if you ain't come from this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it brings leverage and credit and capital back full circle, right? Because like people only think about credit oftentimes from like when they
Well, I mean, this is good, y'all.
When they need it. You know what I'm saying? Like, the only thing about credit, like, oh, I need the money. And it's too late at that point, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're looking for an umbrella when it's already raining, it's too late. Right. And so it's like you got to look at credit and capital from an opportunity standpoint. So one of the things that we've done, like we jokingly set off lines, like we got the studio, you know, a lot of things that we've done. Everybody knows we pour a lot of money to our events, a lot of money to our client experience. For us, we look at our business like an asset, right? And we're reinvesting into that asset. So the reason why it's important to have capital is because guess what? When everybody else is siphoning that money from the business to line their personal pockets, and then there's ebbs and flows in the business, and they don't even have it because they spend it on a liability to put back in the business, guess what we get to do? We get to claim more market share. Partly because you're not even around to get, they got to go somewhere. And so the thing that people don't realize is, how can capital, right? The way that capital can help you in that regard is it can extend your ability to acquire more market share because you're looking at it from the vantage point of this being an asset, right? But if you don't have it, when it's when the getting's good, then you're not going to have the money to be able to do anything with it. Like transparently, right? Like we're a debt-free business, right? We have lines of credit. Some lines of credit we mainly use an Amex card. And then a couple months ago, we had some really major expenses for our event. And I think because of what a lot of other people not being good to the money, credit card companies are monitoring, right? Like, well, we don't know. Like, are these people going to be able to, right? And they actually wanted to reduce our limit, right? Now, granted, we can submit our tax returns and it'll be fine. But my point is, if we weren't in position to address that, if we weren't good to the money, we would have been screwed, right? And I'll always tell people the easiest way to know if you're using credit or credit is using you is to stop using it for a month. That's the easiest way to find out if you're using credit or if credit is using you. Not to mention, we had over 3-4 million points. It's like, okay, cool. Well, let's use the point. We could have used it for a trip to Dubai.
Yeah.
Let's use it to offset this bill that we had the money to pay anyway.
Yeah.
Right. But that's what we mean. It's like when you are up, right? What do you do with the money?
Yeah.
Right.
George started preaching on that one.
Yo, I mean, because it's real life, right? The real life experience is about two things, y'all. I think that wealth acronym, breaking it down, was one of the best things we ever did in this podcast.
Yeah.
By the way, let's give ourselves credit.
Yeah.
Number 2, I will give you credit one more time, and then I'm taking that. You'll see a post on my social media on Monday breaking down wealth. But in all seriousness, like that for me, if you take nothing else away from this episode, which there'll be plenty more, that wealth acronym was ridiculously amazing because we hit it from both sides. Like, well, I feel like it's so good. You can have a wealth acronym for what it should mean and an exact opposite acronym of how to do it wrong. Right. Like L could be liabilities. Like, like I'm just thinking like, all right, this is the right way. This is the wrong way.
W could be worry. Right? E could be escape, right? Because I'm not living the life I want to live. I'm spending the leverage to escape my ideal life, right?
Yeah. So we go come up with a proper definition for wealth and a improper definition for wealth. And but that was amazing. So one of the things you said was, and I always butcher when I try to remember the quote, but it's about being good to the money when the money's good to you.
You're doing well financially.
Do well financially, right?
Financially.
So I think we should take it, because I want to take this to fundability as well, right? Yep. So people want to do well financially, but they might not know how to do well financially when it comes to building their credit,
right? And
when it comes to getting fundable. So I got this money coming in. I know I might need a line of credit for my business one day. How do I put myself in position when the money's good to make myself look good to the banks so I can get the money now? Because I know when my business is not doing well and my bank statements aren't matching, they're not going to give me the money then.
Right.
So I need to apply for the money now while the money is being good to me. So how do we put ourselves in position to be fundable so that we can get the money before we need it?
That's a great question. So the very first thing that I help people understand that your credit score is irrelevant. Mm-hmm. What really matters is your credit report, your content, how you look good on paper when you don't need the money. So the very first thing we start with is getting a copy of your fundability score so you know the factors. So we created an algorithm that goes from 0 and 100, and you can have 700 credit scores and still have a 60 fundability score because there's some things on your credit report that don't look good to the banks. So step one is we want to make sure we have at least like a 90 or 95 fundability score. So if you're watching this, there will be somewhere where you can go get a copy of that to see where you are. But then step 2, Carter, to your question, we want to have some type of business entity already established, right? So if you're an existing business owner, you probably already have this. Mm-hmm. So ideally, you want it to be at least 2 years old, right? So even if you have a dormant LLC that you ain't do nothing with, it's just sitting there, just behind the scenes, just chilling. There's so many people who have these dormant LLCs that's there, and then they go start a new LLC, like, oh, I got this new business idea. Yeah. And I'm like, well, did you have a LLC that you formed in XYZ a couple of years ago? Yeah. Let's go to the older LLC first, because banks want to see, has this business been established for more than 2 years? Mm-hmm. So we start there. Let's look at and see if there's any dormant LLCs that we can leverage. Then step 3, let's look at verifiable income sources. So
speak on what that means, because I don't think people understand the flexibility you have with income sources.
Yeah. So when I say verifiable income sources, or just income sources in general, do you already have a W-2 job that you're paying taxes on? Step yes or no? Yeah. If yes, great. Because this leads us to the third thing, which is debt to income ratio. Because you can have the great credit, you can have a great business entity structure, but if your debt to income ratio is too high, meaning the amount of verifiable income that you make on a monthly basis minus your minimum debt load, banks are going to still say no. So we look at verifiable income with W-2. Do you have Social Security? Do you have disability? Do you have any type of retirement, military retirement? Do you have any of these sources? Yeah. Do you have rental income?
I was about to go there, because people think verifiable income is only what they make from their job.
Right.
But they have all these other ways that they could be probably making money, but they don't report it. Correct. And it causes their debt to income to be higher than it needs to be.
Right. And then if they follow the wealth acronym and they talk to you, Carter, you'll show them how they can still leverage their income strategically on paper and then still potentially get benefits from the IRS with doing that. So rental income is a powerful one, right? You want to include that because it's going to offset your DTI, right? But then how are you paying yourself? There's so many people who get 1099s coming to themselves, but maybe it makes sense to say, hey, listen, instead of having a 1099 come to you as an individual, have it go to that LLC that's 2 or 3 years old. Now the LLC is making some cash flow.
Right.
So these are some fundamental things that you can do to increase your fundability. Then another one that's specific to credit is make sure your credit utilization is below 11% before the reporting date on your credit report, which means you can have a reporting date that's after the due date. So you can be paying your bills on time, but the reporting date can be happening after this, which means now it looks like your utilization is always high.
Gotcha.
But you want to make sure those things are lined up. So in other words, make sure the reporting date is make sure the due date is before the reporting date. So that way you pay it, then it reports a lower balance.
Got it.
Right. And to push it a little bit more, utilization weighs heavier on the credit report than installment debt. So to keep this super simple, you may have a whole bunch of high credit card debt, but you can do something called debt shift, which means get a consolidation loan, probably have a lower minimum monthly payment, shifted that to a consolidation loan. Now this increases your credit report up front. You conserve and keep your cash in your hand, right? As an example. Right. But there's other ways that you can leverage as well. So once you do that, now you go on to the credit perspective and you increase your highest revolving trade line on your credit report. So if you look at your credit report right now, when you download your fundability analysis, you're going to see where you are. But you can go to your credit card companies and request a limit increase. Now, we're not requesting a limit increase to go in debt. We're requesting a limit increase.
Increase the margin between the...
And get that percent lower. Yeah.
Correct. So now, once we have done these foundational things, I might have a 10K limit on my, American Express card or my Chase card or whatever card I may have. Right? We'll call that like a benchmark trade line. You can request a limit increase for 2.5 times, which means you can say, hey, listen, I'm already at 10K. I can request up to 25. I can request, up to 25K in this example. So now that's my new benchmark trade line.
And if I'm correct, could be wrong, but that's not a hard pull to your credit score.
It depends on the bank.
Okay.
Sometimes they do a hard pull. Sometimes they don't.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
But either way, even if it is a hard pull, that's still okay because you're using that as a foundational item to start to go over to the business credit side.
Gotcha.
Because the gem in this is when you have the stuff that we talked about and you go to that LLC and that bank and you apply for a business credit card, what most people don't know and understand about the data point is typically on the business credit card side, it's not going to report to your personal credit, but they're going to give you 70% to 2 times your highest revolving trade line on your personal credit. So in other words, if you have a 25K credit card, you can expect with certain banks to give you double that in one business credit cards. All right. So I want you guys to kind of see where we're going with this. So this means I can go literally get a business credit card for 50K with one bank. Now we start stacking cards. We do 2, 3, 4 cards. Now it doesn't mean every approval is going to be 50K, but that's the data behind why we start to do it up front with increase in fundability and why we reverse engineer with the business entity.
So speaking of stacking, right? I believe in your process, somebody gets their fundability up to code, right? Then there's kind of a sequencing of how you approach it. Because it's not just like, oh, now I'm ready to go. Let me just go apply for everything. Kind of break down the logic of once you're in a position to start getting access to capital, the best way to approach to maximize the amount of capital you can get.
Yeah. So,
and also like the nuances of the different types as well would be helpful.
There's 3 core types of ways that you can access capital unsecured. And what I mean by that is no liens or leveraging existing equity, which isn't a bad thing if you have to. But the first type is business credit cards.
Okay.
Typically, when we're looking at business credit cards, we're looking at 0% interest introductory offer cards first. because those type of credit cards don't require as much financial documentation.
Gotcha.
They're going to really just look at what we talked about prior to, and then now you can go and you can access those cards. The second type is business lines of credit. Now, the difference between a credit card and a business line of credit, it works similar, but with a business line of credit, typically the business needs to be 2 years old and you need to already have some financials. Now, there are low doc or no documentation options, but you would want to look at a business line of credit.
Gotcha.
And then the third type is an unsecured term loan. So if you're a professional making six figures, there are particular banks that will loan you 50 to 90% of your verifiable taxable income up front. So if you know, when we're thinking about the sequence to go to the initial question, if you don't have a way to deploy the capital, we focus on the cards and the lines first if you meet the criteria to get those, because there's no payments due associated with those.
Until you start using it.
Until you start using it, right? Then if you're like, I got this business acquisition, I got this franchise I want to invest in, I got whatever this opportunity is that you've predefined, that you know what the exit is up front. Now you get an unsecured term loan. So that way, you know, because you're going to, with the unsecured term loan, you're getting the money up front, but now you have monthly payments associated with that.
Exactly.
Right. So one thing that people do, if they do those, is they may get the unsecured term loan, 100K, 150, whatever it is, and they may set aside, 12 months of payments, knowing that they have the intent of doing an acquisition or they have the intent of doing a franchise. So they give themselves some wiggle room to ramp up. Right. Those are like the three core ways. So when we're thinking about how do we do this from a sequence standpoint, we just look at, do you already have an opportunity right now that you can invest in? And if so, let's stack you and get all three if you qualify. If you do not, I'd rather you have access to the capital and not need it than need it and not have the ability to access it. So
is there ever a world where you get access to business credit card or line of credit and you just don't use it for 2 years? Do they take it away? Would they reduce your limit? Does that happen? Is it encouraged, like, hey, if you don't know and you just nothing has come up in 6 months, to just swipe it for a second? Like, what are your thought process? What's your thought process there?
So typically, if you get a business credit card and there's no use for it, generally speaking, what happens is that it's just there and you don't lose it.
Right.
Now, if there have been cases where I have seen clients get a business credit card, not use it, and then they reduce it because they weren't using it.
Yeah.
So, but that typically happens after like a year. So you want to be really strategic with the timing.
Yeah.
So, because there is a reality, there is a world where if you're not using the credit, well, they will say, "Now we're gonna go and bring that back, or we're gonna take that back."
Okay.
Right?
Got you.
Yeah, which, I mean, you can get it before you need it and still use it marginally so they don't take it away.
Yeah.
But I think first of all, there's so many mistakes that people make where that cause them not to get the amount of credit that they should get. Right. By, like you said, going in the wrong order or not increasing their personal limits before applying for their business limits. And I think that's what causes people to take deals that they because it's the only one on the table, right? You see, could have got the 0% APR card for 18 months, but because you didn't know what you didn't know, you put yourself in position. Now the only credit card you can get is a 22% APR because that's all you got approved for. Or worse, you wait until you actually need it, and now you have to take whatever offer you get, and that's how you put yourself in I think, worse credit situations.
Yeah, and I think what we're hearing as the recurring undertone is all this is a microcosm of life, right? When you're not operating from a position of strength, you're going to take whatever you can get, right? So what does that mean? That means that I need to be proactive, right? I can't keep kicking the can down the road just because it's not a problem today, right? I need to address it, right? Because if I address it proactively, I'll be in position to win. If you're not in position, it's almost like you're boxing, right? If your stance ain't right? You're not in position, you get knocked out, right? You got to be in position. I think that's people's biggest problem is like they want to win at the highest level, right? And then the opportunity comes, they're not in position. Man, if I could just find that real estate deal, if I had connections, real estate deal comes in your desk and you don't have no capital. And now you're trying to scramble. Now
if I just had capital, then I could take this deal.
And now you're taking the bad financing, right? Because like, well, I just want to get the deal. And then the numbers don't even make sense at that point. And the margins are low. So it's like, if you want to win, like you're in your season of preparation, right? Like build the foundation, get yourself fundable, get all the things in place. So that way you can be set up to receive
Right.
the opportunities, right? 'Cause I don't think God operates in a way of just like, I don't think he has that type of sense of humor. It's like, I'm gonna give them everything they ask for when they're not ready for it.
Right.
I just don't believe that, right? So maybe part of the reason that's delaying your ability to maximize on your potential is you're not preparing. In this season where you're watching everybody else, wishing you had this, wishing you had that, you're not preparing for your opportunity.
Right.
Right. And I think that this the capital is just a microcosm of that. It's like, okay, look, you said you want to acquire more assets, but yet why are you not in a position to get the maximum amount of capital when that opportunity comes across your desk?
Right. And because you're going about it the wrong way, and you're so it fundamentally goes to, are we operating from a space of abundance? Are we operating from a space of lack? And we have to start to realize that money is a vibration, building wealth is a vibration. So instead of me being reactive, what can I start to do to be proactive?
Right.
How can I start to, instead of making an excuse about being late, why don't I just leave 5 minutes earlier? How you do one thing is how you do everything. Now, a lot of people challenge and say, "Oh, I don't really believe that," but nah, it kind of is.
Right.
So you have to start to work internally to make sure that, hey, listen, I am choosing abundance. And the tough part about this, if we're being honest, going to be honest, guys, is when you choose abundance, when you're in a place of lack in the current circumstance, sometimes the current circumstance feels heavier than the abundant decision that you made today. Not realizing that the abundant decision that you made today, you're not going to feel the fruits of that decision till 90 days, 6 months, a year from now. So you've got to make those decisions today and disconnect yourself emotionally from where you are in your current circumstance, because the current circumstance, you are there because of decisions
that you made 3 months ago, 6 months ago.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So it's like you have to, when you start this journey, realize that, hey, I can sit here and make an excuse and say, oh, if I had this deal. No, you did have the deal.
Right.
Just own the fact that this is the current circumstance, and realize that your future self is like, hey, bro, we over here. We need you. And your current self is like, nah, I'm taking this today. And your current self is like, nah, I'm gonna make this decision that's going to not be impactful for my future self tomorrow. So you have to realize that today it's not going to feel good. But today is when I sow the seed, and that's what I have control over it today.
So good. So many things come out of that for me, right? So many things come out of that for me. The first thing that comes out of it is both successful people like pleasurable outcomes, unsuccessful people like pleasurable methods, right? Unsuccessful people expect to, they have association with it feeling good.
Right.
If it doesn't feel good, they don't want to do it. Right. But successful people understand, like, I just want the successful outcome. I am not attached to the feeling, right, of the process required to get that outcome.
Right.
Most of the things we do don't feel good, and I don't care because I care about the outcome.
Right.
And the best math that you can do is the future cost of your current decisions. And most people don't have the ability to do that. Why? Because we only measure decisions by 2 things mainly: to avoid pain or to seek pleasure.
How I feel.
Right? To avoid pain or to seek pleasure. So if I can't feel that future pain because it's in the future and I don't have the ability to bring it forward, I'm not going to have the behaviors or the actions to do what's required, because I can't conceptualize, or I'm not pressed about that future pain. Right. But then when you talk to somebody who's 50, 55, 60, man, I wish I would have put that money away, man. I wish I would. You didn't do the math. So the game is this. The cheat code is this. How can I look at my future self? What do I want that version of me to feel? What do I want that version of me to feel like? What do I want that version of me to experience? And what must be true about my current behaviors and actions to make that happen? And if you can't do that math, if you can't make that connection, if you can't bring that future forward, you'll always find yourself chasing that. And then you'll look up and asking yourself how I got in this position is because you weren't able to do the math.
Right.
That's what I say all the time. Like, just do the math.
Right.
What do you want 10 years from now? What do you want your life to look like?
Right.
What must be true in order for that to happen?
Right. And I was going to speak on that, because when you guys look at what you've built with Melanin Money, this didn't happen last week.
Right.
This didn't happen last month. This happened 2-3 years ago. And you're making the decisions from 2-3 years ago, and you're now starting to see the fruits from those seeds start to come up. You know, so it's like, okay, well, if I understand, like, in the current circumstance today, that I have to make those tough decisions, and I have to discipline my disappointments. Right?
Ooh.
I have to discipline my disappointments and understand that that's a part of the process. And let me push this last thing. Have patience, because patience is profitable. Patience is profitable. Now I can start to realize that the bigger version of myself is going to realize this decision now.
Yeah.
But if I just do it now and be committed to the process, because here's what happened. If we're being honest, we get this quick situation thinking that more money, more credit, what all these other things externally is going to solve the internal issue I'm having today. When in all actuality, it's the internal version. I believe Myron says this. I don't want to chop it up. It's be, do, have, not have, be.
Yeah.
So we have to be
right
today. But here's the thing: you're not a tree. I'm not a tree. We can change.
Yeah.
Trees can't change their position, but humans can change where they are today. So I've got to be the change that I already see is possible today, and then do it every single day. And to your point, look at the math. But for our people who are emotional and they don't like to look at the math and they don't like to look at the numbers, that's cool. So you show me your daily habits, I'll show you the results that you're going to have.
This is good, y'all. The patience, it's really hard.
Really hard.
Extremely hard. And I want to talk about it because I don't want people to think it's easy. The greatest thing that I learned about patience is that the time is going to pass anyway.
It's gonna pass anyway.
The 2 years, the 3 years, the 5 years, the decade is going to pass anyway.
Right.
So why don't I spend the time doing the things that I know will bring me the results that I want? I can't control when the results come. All I can control is the actions today.
Right.
So since the time is going to pass anyway, I might as well spend the time digging the holes and planting the seeds for a tree that I might stand under, my family might stand under, my great grandkid, but I might as well plant the seeds because the time is going to pass anyway.
Right.
Yeah. And patience is a virtue, right? I think Kenny can tell you, because you tell me more now than ever, right? Because we know each other for a very long time. And it's just like, there's things that are happening now that I've said 6, 7 years ago, right? 8 years ago, that I had the patience of knowing when, right? Or when to do it. Like we could have did our first version of the award show in 2021 attached to somebody else's event, which seemed easier, right? Man, we can ride the wave. They're gonna have 2,000 people at the event. We can put it on the bed. And I said, no. And that was 2 years after I already wanted to do it, right? And so it's just like, you have to have enough. Now, yes, tomorrow's not promised, but you have to have enough belief in your vision, right? That when it's time, right, it will be time,
Right.
right? You can't be such in a rut. I think my eye doctor said it when I was younger. He was like, opportunity is like a city bus, right? One comes every 15 minutes, right? Get on the bus that's for you,
Right.
but don't get up. But here's the issue: if you get on that bus just because it came earlier, but it don't take you where you're supposed to go,
Right.
then you're in a whole nother world of hurt, right? So it's like we have to be long term. We have to be. How did Gary Vee put it? I think he said we have to be long term patient and short. I can't remember exactly how he put it, but the moral of the story is patience is a virtue.
Yeah. It is.
And when you possess it, you basically give yourself the opportunity to outlast anybody who is in a rush.
Right. Patience is definitely a superpower, and it's difficult, to Carter's point, to have patience. And the older I get, the more I stay around this earth plane, the more I realize is that the more patient that I am, the better outcomes I receive. And when I try to rush things, whether it's rushing somebody when I'm trying to check out, whether it's trying to cut somebody off because I want to get to the light faster, that just with an energy that's associated with lack. And when you start to deconstruct where that behavior is coming from, there's some things that's deep rooted within yourself that you just want to address. So when you start to look at, even just the rule of 72, or just look at compound effect, a lot of people don't realize that if you just let things compound over time, it may seem like it sucks to dig the hole today. It may seem like it sucks to make that decision today, but a lot of people don't like, I'm not gonna say they don't like, I don't wanna go on record by saying that, but a lot of people thought Kobe was arrogant and he was egotistical. But what Kobe was doing every single day was putting in the work. Every single day he put in the work. So it wasn't the fact that he was arrogant. He just knew the decisions that he made over time, over and over and over and over again. So when he got on the court, people could not touch him. Not because he was better.
Yeah.
It was because technically, I guess he was better because
not because he was arrogant, but because he had put in the work.
Yeah.
Competence leads to confidence.
Yeah.
Right. It's like I use the analogy I always use is like when you jump on a box jump for the first time, it's higher than you ever jumped on. You kind of stutter stepping. Right. It's like, ooh, I don't know. I don't want to fall. But once you clear the first time, you just up, down, up, down, up, down. Because you have the competence to know that you've achieved it. So when you put in the work, get the knowledge, you've gotten the results. Like Alex Mosey always says, you don't build, confidence by shouting affirmations in the mirror. You build it by a stack of undeniable proof.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
And that's what it boils down to.
It's always going to take longer, cost more, and require more work than you think it should.
Absolutely.
Every time.
Every time.
Absolutely.
And when we're going through our impatient moments in our company, it's like, I think that we should have this already. And that frustrates me because we don't have it yet. I have to bring myself back to, it's always going to take longer, cost more, and require more work than you thought possible.
Right.
Michael Jordan actually has a quote. He said, the hardest thing wasn't putting in the work every single day to become the person he wanted to be. The hardest thing was the patience it took for his work to catch up with who he knew he already was.
Right. Right.
And so I think that's a business lesson. That's a financial lesson. That's a life lesson. The investment is going to compound. You have the people that trusted Bitcoin 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 2013, right? Like they're reaping a benefit today off patience.
And the time was going to pass anyway.
Anyway.
Right. What happens is people only look at the fruit, I want this. And no one does the research initially on how deep you got to dig the roots. The more fruit you want, the deeper the roots have to go. Why? Because if you have a tree that has all these apples, all this, if you don't have deep enough roots, that tree is going to tip over.
Right.
Right. So people want all this fruit, but aren't willing to dig the deep enough roots and not understanding there's a reason and there's a purpose why the roots have to be dug deep. Because for what you're expecting and what you want, it will literally fall over if you don't have the right foundation.
Right.
You want to build an exitable company, a company that's worth $100 million and you're rushing the process? What must be true about your infrastructure? What must be true about your systems? What must be true about your operations? What must be true about your company culture? Right? What must be true about your talent to support? Right?
Yeah. What must be true about you?
Yeah. What must be true
right?
about
To
you?
support that outcome. And I think that's part of people miss. I should be able to get that number. And they're not looking at the foundation and the infrastructure, i.e. the roots required to support all of that fruit that you're begging for.
Right. And the piggyback on that, especially with Jordan, The Last Dance is just so awesome to watch. Many people don't know from 1984 to 91, he got his tail handed to him.
Yes. Yeah.
Straight up. And that's just a part of what the requirements are if this is where you say you want to be. So it's like sometimes you have to ignore your feelings.
Most times.
Yeah. I would say, probably most times you got to ignore your feelings thinking about it. But also, in a weird kind of way, you got to ignore the facts sometimes too.
Ooh, come on.
You got to ignore the facts sometimes because if you keep...
He was a 7-time loser.
Those are the
facts.
The facts.
That's the evidence.
You are a 7-time loser.
But you said something, Carter. He said, you said he believes so much in himself. You guys believe so much in yourselves. We believe so much in ourselves when we have the patience that we know the outcome's going to happen. This is where that my favorite F comes in, faith. You have to have the faith that the decisions that I'm making today are going to pay off, even if it looks like the facts are showing that I'm a failure.
Right.
Because sometimes that failure is going to creep in, but I'm not a failure.
Right.
I've learned a different way to do something, and I'm going to apply that principle moving forward. So when I say faith in yourself, but also on this game, guys, we have to have a faith in a higher power that's not us, right? So are we rooted in the word, whatever you believe in? Because you have to understand that that's within us again.
Right.
So we ignore the facts, ignore the feelings, and just have the faith that it's going to work. Have the faith in the vision that you have in yourself, and then have the patience, which is hard.
It's very hard. Right?
Very hard.
Which is why you have to talk. Like I told you the other day, you have to talk to yourself, not listen to yourself. Right? You have to talk to yourself. Like motivation is a lot like bathing. It does not last. You got to do it daily, right? What's the root word of motivation? Motive, right? Like what is your why am I doing this? What is the why behind the what? Like wake up just thinking like, oh, I'm a smart person. I should just naturally have the desire to go crush shit and conquer the world. And it doesn't matter what's going on behind the scenes. Like, no, right? So talk to yourself and remind yourself, like, even though these are the facts that are going on behind the scenes, even though this is how I feel, this is my desired outcome. And I'm having faith that with this persistence, I'll be fine. And the thing I would like to add to that is sometimes you got to just make it practical, right? It's like, imagine driving down a road. You don't know exactly where you're going. You don't know like when the next turn is going to be, but you do know for a fact that going back this way is the wrong direction. Right. So logically, if I said, hey, look, we know for sure that's the wrong direction, you never make a U-turn, even if you don't know the specific coordinates of where you're going. You'll keep driving. Maybe you'll drive a little slower because you don't know exactly where that turn is going to be. Maybe you'll stop at the gas station to get some directions. Maybe you'll pull off at the side of the road for a second to recalibrate. But what we do know is if you know for a fact that going backwards isn't the right direction, you're not going to make a U-turn. Right. So it goes back to digging. You might not know how far you got to dig. But if you know for a fact that you gotta, like that's a direction you gotta go, you gotta keep digging. You gotta keep going. This is a lot more than what we expected.
Yeah, this is the episode, fellas.
From a credit and capital expert, right?
Yeah.
But man, now this is good, man. This is good. This is good.
Yeah. I don't even know where to go after this.
I know. How do you even?
How do you even transition to a closing out of this
something
episode?
Like that? Well, here's what I'll say. We always ask all of our guests this question, right? But given the nature of the episode, you can expound upon it beyond just like the literal sense of money, right? I know your journey. I know you've been an entrepreneur since college, right? From trying to sell my mom knives to cutting grass to all the things to network marketing, to insurance, to financial services, to now what you do now and everything in between. And along that journey, even though there's been ebbs and flows, ultimately you've been able to become a melanin millionaire. So my question to you is, what does it mean to be a melanin millionaire in the context of your journey, right? What does that mean to you?
That's a good question. What it means is it's a spiritual journey always, and you're never going to be where you feel like you should be, but realize you're further along than what you where you may realize you are. And you're inspiring people even with your daily disciplines. So for me, it means freedom. It means, I'm not gonna say I have a calling, but it's kind of like my responsibility to live a way that's an example for other people and show people who look like me that you can do it too. If you just have the right resources, the right mentorships, the right trains to get on that's going to the proper destinations. But also it's just, I would say freedom, inspiration, and then just discipline. At the end of the day, this is a journey, right? It's not a destination. And who I was before I got here is completely different. And I'm grateful for that process. You know, the ebbs, the flows, because at the end of the day, It's me versus me. And I got to look in the mirror. So if I want to like what I'm seeing, I can't get upset at nobody else. So if I'm not where I want to be, what do I need to work on internally to achieve what I feel I should deserve externally? You know?
That's good. That's good. Well, this was one of those ones.
One of those ones is understatement. Yes.
Yeah, glad to have you back. Glad we made it happen, because this is I think more than everybody bargained for. So thank you for of course the gems and the wisdom when it comes to building wealth, access to capital. More importantly, just holistically on what it means to take this journey that we call life. So appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on. Until next time.
Peace.
Peace.